Hello, YouTube and the greater internet. Today we are going to discuss, against my better judgment, CQB. Yep. So we're going to talk about and try to put some perspective on the different types of CQB, right? Deliberate, dynamic, limited penetration, flow, clear and isolate, etc., etc. Quick water break, boys and girls. High quality H2O as always. All right. We're going to talk about how conventional military forces, right, that Marine or Army squad, or the Russians and the Ukrainians, how and why they're clearing the way they clear. We're going to talk about dynamic clearing, right, how SWAT or Delta or Navy SEALs do their due. We're going to talk about civilian and law enforcement clearance and why that looks different. And then we're also going to touch briefly on active shooter situations. Okay. So, deliberate or limited penetration in the aspect of a conventional military force, right? If you're an Army or Marine squad or Ukrainian or Russian right now clearing trenches, you are going up against a fortified, aware enemy. There's no secret that you're coming. They know you're coming. You're having to go trench to trench or house to house. So, chances are it's not the first house or the first trench. Even if it is, you did some sort of indirect fire or softening of the target with machine guns. So they know it's coming. They know it's coming. They're ready. They're in a fortified position. So we don't have any element of surprise. So since we don't have the element of surprise, there's no reason for us to use speed, because the only reason you use speed in CQB is to capitalize on the surprise that you have. We are limited. We have limited or no concern about collateral damage, right? We're in an open warfare zone. We're like using mortars and machine guns. We're not concerned about collateral damage. There pretty much is not a civilian consideration for the most part in these situations. All of these things leave us with only force and violence as our only tool to clear structures, right? So that's when you're like throwing frags before you go in, pre-firing corners, shooting up doors before you breach them, doing all that wild stuff, moving really slow, limited penetration, right? So we're going to pre-fire a bunch of stuff, throw a bunch of frags, pre-fire, and then we're going to go into that room. And we're doing that because we don't have the element of surprise, so we can't utilize speed. All we're left with is violence. It's like a sledgehammer, right? It's like a sledgehammer. You cannot utilize this unit in this style of fighting to go anywhere behind enemy lines to do anything precise, but you can use a large number of them to completely control and dominate and clear out a whole village or a whole town. Okay, and that's how they're used, and that's why they do that. All right, next we're going to talk about dynamic, right? So SWAT teams, Navy SEALs, Delta, Rangers, a lot of the time. They're going to be doing dynamic entries where they're going to have a lot of surprise, so they're going to utilize speed to capitalize on that surprise. Typically, they're going up against an unaware enemy, even if it's like special forces and it's like Iraq or whatever, and the Navy SEALs are doing raids or Delta's doing raids. The guys out there, the enemy, know that they're in a combat zone, but they're not expecting a fight that night. Typically, it's just any other Tuesday night. It's been several days since they were last in a gunfight. They don't expect anybody to be in the area they're at. And then all of a sudden, boom, here's a bunch of special operators conducting a raid. So they have surprise. They're going to utilize speed to capitalize on that. And they're also going to execute precision of movement, precision shooting, precision in every aspect of how they execute, because they are like a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. They are often doing something that's, large with lower levels of support. They're out there on their own. and they're just trying to do a quick out there, go and do a little cut, go get their high value target and get out. And that's why they do all their, raids under night vision and utilizing nonverbal communication and all the other, super sexy, sneaky type stuff that they do. That's how they do it. That's why they do it, because they have the element of surprise. So it's all about maintaining the element of surprise, because that is such a force multiplier and a lifeline if you don't have a bunch of support, because you're out there like a scalpel all on your own. All right. Now we're going to talk about law enforcement, right? So law enforcement, SWAT, whatever. And this would go with the civilian as well, right? If you were just a concealed carry guy and you found yourself, for whatever reason, clearing a structure, clearing your house probably, whatever the case is, you're going to have limited number of manpower and you're going to have a limited number of equipment. Even though the cops will do comical like 12-man stacks and stuff, a lot of times they don't have the actual manpower to do like an inner and outer cordon and come in and completely control and dominate the structure in every room. And as if you're a civilian, you're definitely not going to have that. There's no time pressure, however, right? Both of the military scenarios we talked about before this, for different reasons, often have some level of a time pressure for the clearance of each structure. Not the case here. It's okay. We don't have any logistical or supply concerns. We're not behind enemy lines. We can take all the time in the world to make sure we do this as safe as possible. They also have massive collateral concern. Like the most collateral concern. We cannot fuck this up. We cannot shoot the wrong person. We don't want to just blow holes in all the walls and burn everything down unless we're in Waco. And, right, so that's going to slow down our role and also slow down the level of violence we use. Often we're dealing with limited training, both from a law enforcement and from a civilian perspective. Not very many people in either of those cases are like super CQB god badasses from Delta CAG group. All right. Typically, the goal is not even to destroy the threat. The goal is to identify, to locate and find the threat, and then isolate it. Isolate the threat, cordon it off, get everybody else that's a civilian or a non-combatant out of there, and then hopefully deconflict the situation without having to attack it. But if you do have to attack it, often you're going to come up with some sort of creative solution that isn't rushing 4 dudes in there to have a gunfight. Because we have no time pressure. And now that we've isolated the threat and we're not in a dangerous situation other than that one room we've isolated them in, we can take all the time in the world to deconflict this situation. All right, the last situation we're going to talk about is an active shooter. And an active shooter, 9 times out of 10, is just somebody acting by themselves, and they're not expecting any resistance, and they have no plan, or historically they do not resist once they encounter resistance. So you're pretty much, without just being a complete idiot, sprinting towards the sound of gunfire and putting that target down if you assess that you're in an active shooter situation, which is a very unique CQB environment that kind of violates all of the rules of thumb for every other scenario. Bada bing, bada boom. That is CQB and why people do it way different.